you're all clear and we can get started. So just as sort of an FYI for the committee of the whole, that one is recorded and available, but it's not live streamed, where the 7 o'clock meeting is live streamed, just as a FYI. So Ms. Cusack, are we good to go with the recording?
Yes, sir. Ready to go.
Awesome. So I'd love to call the 4 p.m. Special Council meeting to order, and of course acknowledge in a good way that we're on the unceded and traditional territories of the Kwantlen, Katzie, Mathqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We have our agenda in front of us today. Does anybody want to make any changes to the agenda? So I'm not seeing any. Who would like to move that we adopt the September 23rd agenda as circulated? So moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. On to the committee of the whole. I'll move that council commence a committee of the whole, and that'll be seconded by Councillor Mack. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. So with that, I think we are on to Langley City Center SkyTrain. Very, very exciting. I know Councillor Solian, Councillor Albrecht, and myself had an opportunity to look at this at the advisory design panel, and I'm excited that the rest of council gets to look at this and provide feedback. So, Mr. Johansson, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Got to remember my Zoom protocol here. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for the opportunity to provide an update on SkyTrain and do a run through of the Langley City Center SkyTrain station design, which was presented to our advisory design panel, ADP, last week or on September 11th. And what we want to do today is just run through slides. Of course, the ADP report and the design package is attached to the council agenda, and to provide an opportunity for comments. So if I may, Mayor, I'll share my screen and put up a PowerPoint here, slide deck.
Perfect.
And just wanted to say, yeah, it's to get to this point, we've been working with Transportation Investment Corporation of the province for I think about 4 years now, and now with their contractors that they brought on board. So it's definitely been a team effort, and we have, of course, our city staff team here, engineering and development services, administration, everyone that's worked on, of course, working with council throughout the process as well. And this is where we're at. So we're happy to present what they've come up with to date for comment. So can everyone see that? Okay.
10-4.
Okay, so in terms of the agenda today, we're going to start off by just identifying who's actually designing and building the station. Go through the simple explanation of the what we call the design advisory process, or DAP. Talk about the site and just run through the drawings of the first, what they call the first design submission for the SkyTrain station. Talk about next steps and open it up for comments. Okay, so like I said, of course we all know the sponsor. Of course, the province is one of the major funders for the Surrey Langley SkyTrain project, and running it through their Transportation Investment Corporation, what we call TIC. And this is, of course, everyone recognize this this logo for the project itself. Now, the actual contractors, design build contractors that have been brought on board to design and construct the project from the reference concept design include South Fraser Station Partners, Skylink Guideway Partners, and the other one that's not shown on this screen is the Transit Integrators. And of course, the South Fraser Station Partners, or SFSP, are the design builder for the SkyTrain station. Now, in terms of process, the station doesn't require rezoning or development permit approval from council. It's a provincial project, so it's really important to emphasize that. That doesn't give us the ability to, or it doesn't give council any authority to approve the design. but they've given us the opportunity to comment on the design that's been put together by South Fraser Station Partners and their architect, Frankel Architects, excuse me. So they're open to receiving and considering that input as part of the design advisory process that was established through our negotiation with the SkyTrain and TIC prior to bringing on the contractor. So there's 3 rounds to the DAP process. So first round where they bring in their design, they do a round of public engagement, open houses, which happened earlier this year. And then it goes to municipal review where there's staff review and review by ADP. And then once all those comments are collected by the design builder, it goes into a second round of updated, where they update the design, where they see fit. And of course, keeping cost control and the basic design of the project in mind. Then they go through another round of public engagement, back to municipal review with an option to go to ADP, and then coming up with a final design that will then move forward to construction, which would happen later next year. So at this point, we're at municipal review in round 1. So getting to the site is really important just to get a good sense of where the SkyTrain station, the Langley City Center station, is landing. With the context there, we know there's a lane and there's buildings to the south, but these are the back of house of these buildings, and the site is somewhat, what would you say, like out of sight in terms of being concealed behind buildings from the high exposure or high visibility intersection of Fraser Highway and 203 Street. So when we talk about the transit user experience, knowing that transit users are pedestrians before they get on the train or the bus and after they get off, the existing conditions on the site may inhibit or affect this transit user experience. So it's important to have concerted planning and design to aim to enhance this user experience, to make sure it's welcoming and inviting and safe for transit users now and into the future. And what I mean by now is on opening day in the latter half of 2029. This site here in the city is also, now the sign on the site might say the end of the SkyTrain extension, but we've always considered this as the gateway into the SkyTrain system. And it's an opportunity for a landmark transit-oriented development to occur around the station, and especially just south of the station, where the station can then be integrated into the Fraser Highway frontage and 203 Street intersection. So here's the site on the map, outlined in red, and of course with the streets and the casino to the east there as a contextual, make it contextual. And here is the station landing on the site, and also showing the extension of Industrial Avenue eastward to 203A Street, and the extension of 203A Street down to Fraser Highway to ensure there's a good grid system being made, and also is important for the operations of the transit exchange, which will be located north of the station. So here are the existing conditions looking from Fraser Highway and 203 Street, looking northeast. You can see in the blue text there where the station's going to be. So this gives you a sense of the existing condition. This is the lane that would be just south of the station looking east. And this is a little bit further down towards the casino site. And this is looking westward, very close to where the south end of the station and one of the primary entrances will be. This is also here, this is Lafarge Lake SkyTrain station in Coquitlam. And the point of showing this is we know that SkyTrain is an elevated system. It has elevated platforms, and all the transit users come out at the bottom of the station. You can see here on the right-hand side all the glazing for the entrance and all that. But stations typically also have what they call a back of house, where they have offices and other elements of the station that are hidden behind blank walls here. So it's a little bit of a design challenge, but it's also an opportunity when we think about the site here in Langley. And it's something that we really wanted to take advantage of when we were planning for the site, planning to know that the SkyTrain station was going to land here in our downtown and in that fashion, as I showed you on the previous map. So other cities have done a really good job integrating transit-oriented development right into the stations. This is in Richmond. This is in Vancouver, where Canby and Marine Way meet up, showing the integration of new development directly with the station here. and using those the elevated station to the advantage of the development, but also tucking in, you know, retail and active pedestrian spaces underneath the guideway and beside it. So that really helps to create a more active transit user experience. Something like almost like what you'd find like on a downtown Main Street, where you have a lot of shops and that sort of thing that where people can walk by, and you're not walking past a series of blank walls. Mayor, I was just going to ask, did you want me to stop for questions now or wait till I finish my slide deck?
You might as well go through it and then we can ask questions at the end.
Okay, yeah, it should be just another 5 minutes here. So in the OCP, knowing that the south part of the station and the south part of the station structure itself would be a combination of entrances and sort of blank walls, and knowing that there's this existing condition where we want to connect the station to our high profile intersection at Fraser and 203. The official community planner OCP calls for comprehensive redevelopment of the south side. So the South Plaza that's identified in the ADP report and on the drawings is intended to be a temporary condition, but it's important to make sure it's well designed because it's probably going to be 5 to 10 years before that area is assembled and redeveloped consistent with the OCP. So just showing this out of the report, this is one concept that's just illustrates what's in the OCP in terms of bringing future buildings up to the side of the station, and also creating like pedestrian plazas and connections from that high profile intersection through to the station entrance to create that direct connection. And all of these pedestrian areas would be lined with retail and cafes and shops and that sort of thing, with housing and offices above. And that really helps to put eyes on the street and really create a vibrant, active urban area that provides the opportunities for transit users to get stuff when they're going to SkyTrain, when they're coming off, and also helps to really connect the station into the urban environment and a growing downtown. So as part of the process working with TIC, we did some three-dimensional modeling where we brought in the station here and showing the existing buildings, and then showing again how development could be directly adjacent to the station, where the entrance can actually go through part of the building. And again, this is conceptual. It could be done in a few different ways, but the key idea is creating that clear line of sight and that pedestrian friendly connection between Fraser Highway and the main station entrance. And here's just a perspective view of that, again, showing the plaza, again, with retail and offices and active uses on the ground floor and housing and offices above. And to help give you an idea of what this could look like, using real world examples, again, the point of these isn't to show, examples from Burnaby and Vancouver, but to actually show how the ground plane in the plazas could be treated with trees and paving and outdoor seating and patios and that sort of thing, and making sure that there's that development that is directly adjacent to where we have a high volume of transit users going to and fro. This example here shows the clear, glazing along ground floors to provide that visibility and engagement with buildings. Lots of trees, signature paving treatment. And this is Marine Gateway. These previous examples here are from Brentwood Mall. And this is the Marine Gateway, showing again a really enhanced plaza area with ground floor retail and housing above. You can imagine that in our case, the station entrance could be at the end here. Here's just another view of that. Again, showing the scale of it. It can be scaled to something that is conducive to what we have here in the city with our height limit up to 14 stories. So with that, we provided all that input to TIC, and when they brought in their contractor, South Fraser, the design build contractor, they took that into consideration, but they also brought, of course, their own design into it based on the reference concept design that was created over the past few years. So this was presented at the ADP meeting, and you can see this is a view looking at the transit exchange side of the station. And the architect really wanted to emphasize sort of an open platform with a lot of West Coast theming with wood materials, a lot of glazing here with a retail unit and the entrance here, and then the transit waiting area further to the north, and using screening and that sort of thing and plaza areas to really enhance the transit user experience and make sure there's a lot of eyes on the plazas and the transit exchange. This is a view of the exchange, and also the exchange is actually the bus parking or pickup and drop off areas are up against the station here where my cursor is. And then this area here is a bus layover area, which is being designed to actually facilitate future electric bus charging. So this shows the ground floor plan. And what I want to do is just show some of the highlights that are being brought forward as part of the design. So this shaded area is the actual footprint of the station at the ground floor as it sits on the site. And here are the entrances on the north side and the south. And I say entrances because you can actually walk right through from the south to the north and from the north to the south. And here is the transit police space, which will be directly adjacent to the north entrance. So that's a pretty key aspect of this design, and something that the city has requested from day one, to have a transit police present at the station. The bike parkade is located adjacent to the transit exchange for ease of use. There's going to be a gender neutral washroom put in the station behind the fare gates. And like I said before, there's a retail unit that's going to be featured at the end to provide some services on site and some immediate transit user convenience and vibrancy on the site prior to development happening on the South Plaza and in the area around it. So here's a landscape plan just showing the details with the paving materials. The station architect has done a great job putting in a number of really interesting paver materials and cast in place concrete pavement, saw cut, so it's nice and smooth for people that are using wheelchairs and scooters and rolling and that sort of thing. And also using the exposed aggregate concrete band patterning that you see on the Evergreen Line stations in Coquitlam and Port Moody. And also bringing forward on the north side here, a decorative wave pattern, which is actually being extended from the public realm that's going to be put in underneath the SkyTrain guideway on Industrial. So it helps to add some immediate character and sense of place to the landscape design. And again, here are the entrances and the retail unit with attention being paid to creating a unique paving pattern for the plaza area by the retail unit and on the south side. So here's a couple of slides from the design package, again, just showing how this station relates to the other ones in terms of the use of the wood and the open design, and also showing some detail in terms of the materials that are being used for the station. And there's a difference between the station that I showed earlier at Lafarge Lake and what they're using here. Instead of using the masonry block for the back of house, they're going to be using textured concrete paneling that can be put in a series of patterns and that sort of thing to provide additional visual interest. Okay, so again, close to the end here, here's a couple of elevations on the top here showing the view of the station from the north. And then the bottom is the view of the station from the South Plaza. So imagine if you're on that lane and you're looking at it. So here are the platforms on the second level and the entrances, and I've shaded in the glazed areas or the clear window areas in the light blue on the ground floor, so you can see what is glazed and what is not. And on the north side, you can also see where the bike parkade is going to be beside the entrance with glazed windows, so you can see in and out of the parkade for septet reasons. The retail unit, and on the south side, you can see the retail unit. And one of the comments that came out of ADP and from staff is that we'd like to see some glazing on the south side of the retail unit to make sure that people can see in and out of that unit onto the plaza when the station is open. And these light brown areas just show, again, those back of house areas of the station where there's offices and transit police and everything inside that are only accessible to the police and transit staff. And this is where their concrete paneling treatment is being put in. And on the north elevation, that's where a lot of the transit waiting area is going to be. And on the south is a series of doors and small windows. And that's going to be that station wall facing the plaza, which provides that opportunity for development to come up against it in the future, again, to provide an opportunity to have a building almost grow out of the station, again, with those active ground floors. So just briefly, here are the recommendations that came out of ADP. So I'll paraphrase these very quickly, but there's a real sense from the panel to add more glazing to the retail unit. The CRU stands for Commercial Retail Unit, to enable more visibility between the store, the cafe, and the Southeast Plaza. Looking at the exit stair design on the north side of the station, there was a little bit of concerns. There might be some areas there that may create some blind corners. So there's some suggestions there. The tail track, the end of the actual guideway, goes a little bit further east, almost up to the sidewalk on 203A Street. So there's a lot of interest to see if the station partners, design builder, could do something interesting there with the tail tracks, potentially with public art. Automatic doors in the bike parkade, pedestrian crosswalk at the bus exchange. This one was emphasized quite a bit, was adding more shade trees into the landscape plans, especially on the south side. Enhance the appearance of the propulsion power station, which is located up on Industrial Avenue. And of course, we can talk about that. I have a few slides if you want to talk about that, but in the interest of time, I've left those out. There was an emphasis on making sure those concrete panels on the transit exchange side are resistant to vandalism, they're durable, and very important to ensure there's lighting throughout the site, and it's on 24/7, which it definitely will be, but it's important to emphasize that. And also reviewing the plaza landscaping design for usability and drainage. Okay, so next steps coming out of the council today, we're going to put everything together and send them to the station contractor and TIC by October 4th. That is our deadline. Like I said, they're going to consider the input and they may incorporate it into the second design submission and then present this at a second round of public open houses. And as talked about before, we're at the end of the first round and we would be going into the second round now in the interest of getting to a final design and getting under construction. So that's what I have, Mayor, and thanks for the opportunity to present and open to comments.
Thank you very much. So we'll see if some folks have any questions on this. So we will go with Councillor Wallace and then we'll go to Councillor Solium.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out the hand thing and it's not working. I'm pressing.
It's in reactions.
I am
okay.
in React and I'm pressing the hand and it's not allowing me. So I'm just, thank you for recognizing that my hand is up. Just a few questions in regards to the design concept. I love the decorative way pattern and the way that it is. I just feel it mimicking the Nicamaco floodplain. I think that's really important, and I hope that carries through to the Innovation Boulevard. Maybe when we get our Performing Arts and Cultural Center, that same mimicking happens. And then I think I was mentioning to Nathan in regards to Indigenous public art and connecting that wave with the story of the salmon and the Nicamaco River. I think that would be really important. And also the glazing in glazing and looking at public art, some strategic things to do with glazing and adding even the mimicking of waving and the salmon. I think it's a really important story and Indigenous feature of, that historical reference and the story of how important salmon are. Yeah, so you've touched on the shade of trees. I noticed that, and the power station I know that you haven't talked about it. It's very, very boring. If there is anything to liven up that power station, that would be great. And I love the fact that you talked about the smooth pavement as far as accessibility. I think it's really, really important. I'd like to hear some more features in regards to the accessibility plan. But as far as that, bike storage, and one other thing is the design with more eyes on the ground as far as safety. And I hope, and I've mentioned this before, maybe previous councils of not wanting, it might be important to have transit police, but I just don't want it to be so police focused in the sense of I hope that we design something that is socially, we're socially responsible for, the design that we do and the people that, and the businesses that we bring in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hanson, did you have any feedback?
Yes, yeah, thank you for that. Just briefly on the accessibility, we can ask them to, when they bring in their updated submission, to identify some of those key features. And that's something that was also in the public engagement results that were summarized. And I could send that link to council. Yeah, there's a lot of comments about, the accessible washrooms, ensuring that there's smooth pavement, how to get from, the entrance up to the platform. And the station design will also have to adhere to the TransLink's accessibility requirements. So they have a whole set of guidelines and requirements that they apply, and also goals to, update all the SkyTrain stations to ensure the latest in accessibility standards.
Yeah, and I think for the power propulsion station, certainly there was feedback on the boring design, and so that was well heard at advisory design panel, and I think the folks designing it heard that pretty clearly. And then on the art piece, Mr. Johansson, can you explain the program a bit? Because some of it's like to be determined, and I know in the past it was like they allocated a percentage of funding and then they kind of went out after. I don't know if that's the case this time. Do you have any context on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The context I have on that is pretty, it's pretty thin, admittedly, but I know there is a public art process underway, and I think it's getting close to being wrapped up. And there was a call for artists. There's also discussions with First Nations about First Nations art. So I think there's going to be a series of announcements coming soon about what kind of public art and who is doing what at the stations. But my understanding is that there will be public art at the Langley City Centre, and some of the areas that have been considered are the south wall and also the plaza areas. So as soon as we have more information on that, the process has been pretty close to to their chest in terms of keeping it on a confidential basis. But once we hear something, we'll make sure council's made aware of that.
Thanks so much.
Just to follow up to that, if I may, Nathan, or is that I believe that Miss Hilton is on that. I don't know what it is. The group is called for public art. So.
Perfect. That's good to know. Councillor Solio.
Great, thank you. Mr. Johansson, when you were showing some of the photos earlier of different SkyTrains, you were showing some that had structures built on top of the station. So I'm thinking of like the shops at New West, that sort of thing. Do you know if that was ever considered as an option for development for this terminus station, or was it always intended to be adjacent to development?
Yes, to the mayor, to Councillor Solium. I think with the OCP policy, there's a number of possibilities that are possible. The main one is really looking at the opportunity of those properties in the lane to the south of the station and ensuring that we get a great integration to the Fraser Highway 203 and also going towards the historic downtown. That being said, it is definitely possible on SkyTrain stations to build over. You can also potentially build, there's been talk about potentially in the future building on the transit exchange site, maybe on top of it. Those are a little bit more complicated exercises, and I think that, and of course OCPs are living documents too. So at the time we chose to really go to have a really strong policy on the south side, but that doesn't eliminate the possibility of building over the station. It does get very complicated in terms of ensuring that development. A good example is the Plaza 88, where you have to build significant structures over the track and the station to prevent things falling onto the track. And that it was also done in Surrey. I think the canopy over the track there was $1 million on its own. So it is quite an expense, and typically it's done on sites where there's potential for really tall buildings. Here, we don't, that's not necessarily the case. So we really emphasized a pretty dense form on the south side. So I would say it's possible, but not probable.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, so if that were to occur, would that be something that the city, or would it be a private like a partnership with a private developer to actually build above it? I'm not sure where the ownership would lie, or whether you have any knowledge about how it's done elsewhere.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Solium, all the examples we've seen have been private developers. You know, with the Surrey example, there was some involvement from the city with the lands there, but other projects like Plaza 88, the new Gilmore station, which is an exceedingly complex feat of engineering, is private development, where they essentially excavated around the guideway columns and built a parking garage underneath the guideway, and then surrounded the station with new buildings. So yeah, typically it's private development.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mack.
Thank you, Mayor Bahal. I received feedback from wheelchair users that specifically the gap in between the platform and the train can be quite problematic. A couple individuals that I spoke with have actually previously got stuck and needed another individual to help them to enter the train. So I just wanted to flag that. And then my question was regarding parking, because I believe that there were 17 parking stalls shown in the drawings. I'm wondering what their plan is, if you have any information.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Mack, yes, we will make that note as part of our comments about the gap. That was also highlighted in the public engagement summary about the gap and that difficulty there of having that distance there. The parking that's provided as part of the plan there is for the BC Rapid Transit workers, TransLink, and Transit Police, and also for loading for the commercial retail unit. And if there ever is redevelopment, those spaces would be integrated into the new development. The scope of the parking at this point is just limited to transit operations. In terms of the long term in the area, we as part of the development scenarios we looked at, one of the reasons why we wanted to assemble all that land to the south of the station and bring it up to the station was to open up the ability to have underground parking, and a significant amount of that. And you can also have some parking above grade in those new buildings. So there's a possibility to have a pretty good amount of parking for the residents, for office users, but also the possibility of having what we would call blocks of park and ride, where there could be spaces that are available for park and ride use. So that is a possibility. There's also the casino also has a parkade in the area that could be the potential for park and ride as well.
Perfect. Councillor White. You're on mute if you're talking, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Bahal. Through the mayor to Mr. Johansson, thank you so much for your presentation. It's very exciting to see. Just a few quick comments. From my perspective, I really appreciated the commercial development that's incorporated underneath. For me, I guess some of the questions there is balancing the kind of commercial development that's underneath there that would also potentially entice loitering, and so there's a balance there. I think people appreciate certain services when they come out of the SkyTrain stations, and people love to get a good coffee or something else, but at the same time there's a balance there. But I like it. I like how it feels. I really appreciated the open walkways leading in. I think looking at some of the potential development coming off of Fraser and at the other end, again, it's kind of balancing that tunnel feeling, as they walk along the walkway. If the development's too high, you kind of get that closed in feeling. But I liked how some of the other locations actually presented in the lead up to the SkyTrain station, but there was just some additional concerns there. The blank wall, that's trademark, I guess, for a lot of the SkyTrain stations. I'm just wondering, like everybody else, how can we use that in a way that's very engaging and enticing, and is thoughtful, maybe inspiring. And I know there's a balance between potential vandalism and everything else, but I think it's a great kind of communication piece, actually, about our history. Maybe it's the history of Langley City. Maybe there's more. Maybe it's a media wall or something. I think there's just maybe those might be things that others have thought of, and there might be good reasons why those things haven't been integrated in, but just some additional thoughts there. And then I did have some questions about wayfinding when you come out, and I'm sure this is addressed in other aspects of the design of the station, but kind of key locations. I found sometimes walking out of the SkyTrain station, the few times that I've been on one, but I'm kind of becoming more of a rider. But being able to get my bearings as to key locations in the area, and just how that's best communicated to people that are coming out. And for me, one of those next things was just regarding, and I know that we're doing, there are pilots and test studies being done with e-bikes and e-scooters. And, there's, the bike storage area, I'm assuming is for people's personal bikes maybe, but what about the kind of commercial aspect of e-bike rentals and some of the scooters that are being piloted in some of the other communities, and where in proximity to the station might those be, or would they be incorporated in? So anyway, those were just a few of my thoughts and questions.
And you know what might be a really interesting thing for us is TransLink has a pretty well-developed wayfinding strategy, and it might be good for us to maybe have a meeting with them, because I know there's a lot on the accessibility side and the wayfinding side that they put into, and I think it would be really interesting for us to hear that actually and see how that might fit in our context, because I think they really kind of get it handed over and then they put that piece in. So that might be something to flag with staff for a future meeting, I think. And as far as the bike side, Surrey just launched their Surrey bike program. I think it's I forget the company, but that might also be an interesting discussion to have with them, because they just rolled that out this summer in sort of the, I don't know, Whalley to Guildford-ish area, to provide that last mile. So, maybe by the time that's done, they'll have, maybe 6-7 months of data on how that's been, but really exciting stuff. But I'll let Mr. Johansson add any more comments.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. No, these are great comments. Thank you, Councillor White. I'll be very brief. Yeah, I think we'll emphasize, the having a wayfinding strategy and something. What we talked about with the plaza design was having areas where you could have wayfinding or public art installations. Like it's really important to have. So it's something we'll keep in mind. And talking about how those walls are going to be treated. The architect at the ADP was talking about using different patterns and paneling, and having those walls does provide opportunities for future installations as well. So it's a really good point. And yeah, the pedestrian corridors will definitely, as part of the design, they're almost like streets without cars. They're be wide enough to have a sense of comfortable enclosure, but not too tight. So good comments. Thanks.
Perfect. So if there isn't any more comments on this, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. I figured out my hand sign. Thank you, Mayor. just in regards to the blank walls, I know that in the past we talked about digital media and using wall space for a digital media interactive space. Be a good opportunity to maybe, I don't know, the costs and, you know, maybe we could have sponsorship, but I know in presenting to our minister, in regards to the Performing Arts and Culture Center, we did talk about digital media. So I think that would be another good tie-in to our Innovation Boulevard and the Performing Arts and Culture Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And I think if you've ever taken the SkyTrain at night at Gateway, I'm sorry, it's just I've been on a lot of SkyTrain in my life. The rec center that's there has a digital projection at night on the wall there. It's really cool. So just want to flag that if you're ever that way. So if there's any other comments, this is the time. Otherwise, you can email Mr. Johansson. With that, I think we'll go on to item 2B, which is information access and privacy protection policy. Ms. Kenny, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I'm sorry that my screen is so dark, but I put every light on, so we'll go from there. I'm just going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint to present to you. Do you see that?
We're seeing your notes. So if you do the, I think there's usually the flip button, then it should work. If you do the display settings, I think you can do that.
Oh, okay. Display swaps present.
Yeah, and then we should be good to go.
Okay. Well,
Perfect.
just going to move my here so that not facing you. Okay, so it's a little bit better. Okay. So what I want to talk to you today about is our information access and privacy protection policy. This is a new policy that was developed in consultation with the senior management team, and it's part of our overall privacy management program, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. So I'm just going to let you know that this policy is applicable not only to city employees, to our contractors, to our committee members and volunteers, but also to you as council members. This is an important tool that is going to help guide us in complying with our privacy requirements under FIPA, which is our Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, but I'll refer to it as FIPA going forward in this presentation. The policy is in your agenda package, but you don't need to follow along or anything because I'm just going to be providing very broad strokes. There's only about 11 slides. It's just to give you an overview of the purpose and a bit of our privacy management program. I think, first of all, I should provide you with a little bit of background on FIPA. It'll be helpful in understanding the purpose of having this policy. So as the name indicates, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, it's a two-part purpose. So the first part is obviously freedom of information, but the second part is protection of privacy, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Now, in order to ensure that public bodies protect personal information, FIPA imposes many obligations on public bodies with respect to how they collect, use, and disclose personal information. Generally, there's a lot of must-dos stipulated in the legislation. So one of the mandatory requirements is for a public body to designate someone or a group of people to be the head of the local public body for purposes of administering the act. And so under our Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw, I, as corporate officer, is designated as the head for that purpose. And Paula, our deputy corporate officer, is designated as the coordinator of the city for that purpose. So in my absence, she would become the head of the public body for that. And I wanted to let you know what the difference is because I may be referring to the head of the public body. I want to make sure you understand that that doesn't refer to you and not your responsibility. That's my responsibilities. So FIPA has gone through various amendments since it was first enacted in 1993. In 2021, there were two significant amendments that were brought forward. One was mandatory privacy breach notification requirements, and the other was mandatory privacy management program. So in 2022, the provincial government issued two directives with regards to these two pieces of legislation, and they provided clarification on how we were to comply with these two pieces of legislation. Now, the privacy breach direction was provided as to what information must be provided to affected individuals, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. Now, for the privacy management program direction, it actually detailed what components at minimum we have to have as part of a privacy management program. I've included both of those guiding documents in the agenda package if you'd like to take a look. Now, these guidance documents help to inform the content of our privacy policy, so it's good to know that. And so what is a privacy breach? So the definition under FIPA is that it means the theft or loss or the collection, use, or disclosure that is not authorized by this part of personal information in the custody or under the control of a public body. So there have been a lot of high-profile examples of privacy breaches due to theft or loss. For example, the ICBC case and the Life Labs privacy breaches. Now, it's important to note that the term privacy breach also refers not only to theft or loss, but also the unauthorized collection, use, or disclosure of personal information. So as an example of this, say we have the finance committee finance department collecting personal information through email, getting their personal emails for tax purposes so they can contact them for that purpose. But then say that information is given to the recreation department so they can send out a survey to these people to find out, what they want to do with the recreation services. That would be an unauthorized use of that personal information because that wasn't the purpose for which that information was first provided. Now, notifying affected individuals of a privacy breach is now mandatory under FIPA if the breach is expected to result in significant harm to an individual. So that's important to note. So some examples of what could be a significant harm would be identity theft, significant bodily harm, humiliation, damage to reputation, or loss of employment. So the notification must be in writing, and the legislation outlines the specific information that must be included in that notification. So that could include things such as the date on which the privacy breach occurred, a description of the personal information that was involved in the privacy breach, as well as a description of the steps that the city took or will take to reduce the risk of harm to the affected individual. Now, this information must also be provided to the BC Privacy Commissioner. There are financial penalties for not advising the head of the public body and or the Privacy Commissioner of a privacy breach that could result in significant harm to somebody. So the penalties include, upon conviction, an individual could be liable for up to a fine of $50,000. And for a corporation, that's $500,000. So accordingly, our new policy addresses the subject of privacy breaches, and it includes privacy breach response checklist for people to use. And that's included as an appendix to the policy. So this new policy, as I mentioned, is to be considered a foundational component of our required privacy management program. So what is a privacy management program? The province defines it as an evolving set of policies, procedures, and tools developed by the public body to enable systematic privacy protection throughout personal information lifecycle. So really, the different components that make up our privacy management program are things that some of the things we already have. And really, we're never going to be done with creating a privacy management program. There'll always be new components coming forward. We might be changing and updating components that we have now. But overall, the goal is to ensure that we're all doing our part to protect the personal information that we have in our custody and control, and what we're collecting, using, and controlling or disclosing as part of our roles in this organization. Now, the purpose of the policy is described as shown here. I'm not going to read it out. It really sets out clear responsibilities and expectations of individuals with respect to FIPA requirements. It also incorporates various existing FIPA resource material that we have into one document for easy reference. For example, we have a standard wording template for our notice of collection of personal information, and we've included that as an appendix to the policy. The policy also identifies other related policies and publications that we have that do contain some privacy or FIPA provisions, and those also form part of our privacy management program. And those include our information technology policy and even our council code of conduct. And both that, the IT policy and an excerpt from the council code of conduct is included in the agenda package for your reference. So here are the sections of the policy, and each section it really deals with a specific aspect of FIPA. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. I'm just showing this to you so that you can see how this policy is a key tool that we are using as part of our privacy management program. I do want to note that under roles and responsibilities in the policy, it states, quote, council members, city employees, committee members, volunteers, and service providers are responsible for reading and understanding their responsibilities under this policy and following the information access and privacy protocols identified in this policy. So obviously, training is going to be an important part of our privacy management program. As part of us developing a training program, last year we had exempt staff take an online training course that is offered through the province at no cost. And so we thought that would be a good way to dip our toes in the water, per se. So in total, the course takes between 60 to 90 minutes. And once you complete that, there's an exam at the end that takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and it's multiple choice. Now, this course is now mandatory for our exempt staff to take. And I would encourage you as council members to maybe take it yourself and increase your privacy knowledge. If you do want me to email you that link to it, I can certainly do that. And in your agenda package, you might want to take a look at the tip sheets. There's 3 tip sheets that are part of what this program does. And it gives you an idea of what would be covered off in the course. And I'm also currently working with HR to develop other training opportunities for both exempt and union staff. I'm also updating our existing Freedom of Information quick reference guide for employees. I'm updating legislation that has changed, for example, our now mandatory privacy impact assessments, which before weren't mandatory. And I'm also wanting to broaden it in scope so we can provide it to everybody, not only our employees, but to you as council members and committee members and our contractors. So that is about it. I know I did a very high level here, but I hope that gives you an understanding of what our privacy management program is starting to look like.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. And I know there's a lot for us to go over here. And you know what I might suggest too for council, if there's a general question, certainly we can hear that. But sometimes we might have a specific question that we might have on a specific example. And is that all appropriate just to send it to you, Ms. Kenny, if we have a specific question or concern on what to do?
That would be great, because what we're going to do is we can take that feedback to inform further training for council and for other people.
Perfect. So just being mindful of the time and also appreciating this is a complicated subject. If there is a general question, let's hear it now. If we have some specific things on our mind, again, as Ms. Kenny said, let's send that to her and then maybe she can present back to us in the future. Just, it is quite the amount of legislation. Councillor Albrecht.
Yeah, Ms. Kelly, and thank you, Mayor Bahal. This is really great. I'm just wondering, is there a chance that we could just have the tip sheets sent out to us separately?
Oh, certainly.
Because it's all part of the big agenda package, and it's just easier to reference just those specific tip sheets, if anything comes up.
I will certainly do that.
Thank you.
Perfect. And I know you mentioned sending those course links. That would be optimal, I think, for council as well, so we could take that. Cool. So I'm not seeing any other questions from council, so we'll move over to the Fraser Highway One-Way project. Councillor Mack.
Thank you, Mayor Bahal. As you all know, I've previously recused myself, so I would prefer to step out during this agenda item. But I'm not actually 100% sure the protocols being in Zoom.
We will put you in the waiting room. So
Okay.
I think Ms. Kenny can do that and then just remain there and then we'll pop you back in. Actually, this is the end of this section, so maybe we'll send you a text message when we're about to start the closed meeting, if that's actually no. You'll go in the waiting room because we have to go into the closed meeting. So
Okay,
just
thank
hang
you.
tight for 10 minutes. With that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Pollock. Hello.
Thank you, Mayor Bahal. Maybe just prior to my quick verbal presentation here, I could ask Rachel to turn her camera on. I'd just like to introduce formally Ms. Rachel Olenberger, who's started with the city as the new Manager of Engineering Services. Rachel has joined us from the city of Maple Ridge and comes with an extensive history and experience in local government. She's worked in both planning and building. She finally saw the light in about 2013 and went to work in the engineering department at the city of Maple Ridge. But Rachel has just joined us as a Manager of Engineering Services. So very much appreciate having Rachel come on board, and you'll see a lot more of Rachel when she comes to council meetings in the future. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of Langley City and Langley City Council, welcome. Maple Ridge is an awesome community. The council there is great, but life is better on this side of the bridge. So with that, we'll turn it back over.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mayor Bahal. So what I would hope to do over the duration of this contract is to come to council on a roughly about a monthly basis, just to give a quick verbal update on the status of the contract. The contract has been awarded to B&B Construction, and the contract documents are well underway. A significant component of this project is actually the BC Hydro undergrounding along Fraser One-Way. Those drawings have not yet been issued for construction, and as such, then the contractor cannot fully finalize their construction schedule. It's very largely complete, but not 100% complete and issued for construction. So the contractor will be finalizing their schedule very shortly, and this will be being made public. There is some investigation work that members of the public will see commencing this week. They're going to start the pre-locates for utilities along the Fraser One-Way. So they'll be using a mixture of, or a combination of technologies, including ground penetrating radar, to locate each of the utilities and mark those out. So and they'll be doing some test pits as well, just to verify soil conditions. So that will be commencing shortly. The contract duration is 290 days, calendar days, or approximately 10 months. And the construction schedule is to first construct the works on 206 Street, and that will take largely the remainder of this year. before the contractor will move on to the Fraser One-Way after the Christmas break. The contract did allow for a Christmas or a December shutdown along Fraser One-Way anyway, but given the timeline, they may not actually have literally physically turned the corner at that stage. So after Christmas, the construction on the Fraser One-Way will take place in 2 phases, with Salt Lane being the boundary. And certainly it's been a significant component of the contract discussions, but access to businesses will be maintained throughout the period of the construction. As council would be aware, this is a significant contract, and it will be disruptive for the purposes through the period of construction. So having a robust and a proactive communication strategy is really important. And staff from engineering have been working with communications to discuss what that would look like. It'll involve utilization of the city's website. There'll be a dedicated project page. It'll be on social media, and regular updates will be provided. It'll also be an opportunity for individuals or businesses to sign up for regular updates via email on a weekly basis. In addition to keeping the members of the public informed, they're obviously having regular communication and dialogue with businesses along the Fraser One-Way is extremely important. So we have just finalized the draft terms of reference for the Business Liaison Committee. We have identified, I think it's about seven or eight different businesses that could participate in this, just to get a good cross-reference of people along the Fraser One-Way. And we'd hope to have that confirmed by the end of this month. Obviously, there will be impacts on the parking for the section of the roadway that is closed to construction, and there has been additional parking created at City Hall for the interim. I think there's about 37 parking stalls that have been created. The DLBA have produced a map of various parking spots along and around the Fraser One-Way. And there will be about 10 signs placed along the Fraser One-Way, providing residents and business, those visiting businesses, the locations of parking areas. So that's pretty much the update I have at this juncture, Mayor Pahal. I'd say we'll be back before council giving an update, certainly regularly, and I would anticipate once a month. And if there are specific issues that would need dialogue, maybe in terms of weather impacts or a specific issue that would be uncovered, then we would certainly come forward to council and provide a verbal update as well. But happy to answer any questions at this juncture.
Perfect. And it was exciting to hear about that weekly email that people can sign up to. I think that'll allay a lot of concerns and just get the facts to folks right away. I might have missed it. When do you expect that to launch on the city's website?
We'd like to try and get the schedule finalized before we sort of launch that. But I would expect that within the next couple of weeks that will be available.
Oh, perfect. Thanks so much. So we'll go to Councillor Wallace first.
Thank you, through the mayor. Happy to hear the communication strategy. And just being downtown on the weekend, it is a pretty busy place when it comes to Friday, Saturday nights now. All of a sudden it's really busy. There are lineups at restaurants. It's a very positive thing, very exciting. So I'm glad to see that we have a strategy in regards to parking and that. And one of my questions would be 2 questions. Businesses liaison committee. I'd like to know the businesses that are involved to see. I know you say you do have a cross section of businesses. It would be nice to see which businesses are involved. And just in regards to the communication piece, the project won't be starting until after December, the one-way project. I guess in regards to, is that
If
correct?
not, no.
No, it's just the project the construction will commence in October on 206th Street.
Okay,
That work will be complete this year, and then in 2025 it'll turn the corner and go Fraser one way.
so you mean 206, and so it starts at 206. I'm trying to understand.
Right.
It's not the
Yes.
one way then.
No, basically the lower end of the project where the utility have to tie into and be replaced is on 206 from Douglas to Fraser Highway.
Okay, so I think thank you for that. I think that's the confusion with some of our public. So when we talk about our one-way project, they don't understand the utility piece of it, and I think that needs to be communicated more, because it'll be like traffic and all of that. I feel like
Yep.
that piece for me, yeah, I think the public needs to understand that that is part of the one-way project. And then further, just in regards to when the one-way, the actual one-way starts, if the businesses would have maps, for instance, that are provided by the Downtown Business Association that would be put up in restaurants that, like, you know, when people frequent certain restaurants, it's nice for them to know that this is happening and that the map is there, and that whether it be a QR code or whatever, that they would know where parking would be.
Yes, well, through the chair, to Councillor Wallace, yes, all very good points, and those will all be incorporated as we move forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor White, were your questions answered, or did you have a?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Wallace did a great job of articulating some of my questions that she didn't even know I had questions about. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think with that, that's a great update. We look forward to seeing you in a month, and I look forward to that weekly update emailer coming out. So exciting times in our downtown. I think that brings us, Councillor White.
Did we sign up for the weekly update on the website? Is that where we sign up for that? Through the mayor to Mr. Paul?
Yes, through the mayor, Councillor White. Yes, I would envisage that would be the case, but I'll make sure that information is forwarded to members of council, just so that you can get that.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So with that, I am going to let Councillor Mack in. So just double checking, no more questions on this. Councillor Wallace.
Just before, I know that you're going to call for a close to go to the next session. I just wanted to say that I'm going to be in travel, so I probably won't make the next session. I'll try my very best to be at the council meeting, but if I'm not, it's because I'm stuck in trying to find Wi-Fi. So thank you for your understanding.
Okay, thank you so much, Councillor. Anything else on one way? Not seeing any. I will let Councillor Mack in. Hopefully she is still here. Councillor Mack, you're here and you can hear us.
Yes.
Perfect. So then we will, I'll move that the Committee of the Whole Rise and Report, seconded by Councillor James. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. There's nothing to ratify. So we're on to item 5, motion to hold a closed meeting. That the council meeting immediately following this meeting be closed to the public as the subject matter being considered relates to items which comply with the following closed meeting criteria specified in section 90 of the community charter. 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. E, the acquisition, deposition, or expropriation of land or improvement if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communication necessary for that purpose. J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. K, negotiation or related discussions respecting the proposed provisioning of a municipal service that are in their preliminary stages and that, in the view of council, could be reasonably expected to harm the interests of the municipality that were held in public. M, a matter that under another enactment is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting, and 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. Who would like to move that? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried unanimously. Don't leave quite yet. I'll move that the meeting adjourn, seconded by Councillor Mack. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Do folks need a 5-minute break, or do we want to continue? 5-minute break. Let's be back at 5:15, and let's do that. I'll see you in 5.